An exocentric compound refers to the combination of two or more roots, words, or phrases whose grammatical head does not straightforwardly define its meaning. Instead, the head of the compound describes some unexpressed semantic head. Compare these two examples, laser printer and graybeard. In the first example, printer is both the grammatical and semantic head of the compound. Grammatically speaking, printer takes on all the inflectional markers. For instance, laser printer can be pluralized to laser printers. Semantically speaking, a laser printer is a type of printer. In the second example, the grammatical head of the compound is beard, as it takes the inflectional markers. However, beard does not define the meaning of the compound. A graybeard is not a type of beard, but rather an old man. In the English language, exocentric compounds refer most often to human beings, or in the rare case to animals. Such exocentric compounds, as for example, redneck, loudmouth, or redskin, denote a person with a quality expressed by the compound. A loudmouth is someone who has a loud mouth, and a redskin is someone whose skin is a reddish color. These compounds consist of an adjectival modifier and a noun head. Another type of exocentric compound consists of a verb modifier and a noun head. For example, pickpocket, cutthroat, killjoy. These compounds are rare and the pattern is unproductive.
The implication if-then is less similar to its corresponding expression in natural language than any other logical connective. In propositional logic, it is usually called the material implication, and it is only false if its antecedent P, the if clause, is true, and its consequent Q, the then clause, is false. The material implication is symbolized by a forward arrow or by the algebra symbol that is also used for sets. Let us look at an example and construct the truth table. If Brutus kills Caesar, then Caesar will be dead. This implication is certainly true if both antecedent P and consequent Q are true. But it is also true if the antecedent P is false, that is, Brutus did not kill Caesar, since now the consequent Q cannot be invalidated. Caesar could still be dead. However, if Brutus did kill Caesar but Caesar is not dead, that is, P is true and Q is false, the implication is false too. And if both P and Q are false, as in if Brutus did not kill Caesar, then Caesar will not be dead, the implication is true too. So the crucial case is the third condition. If P then Q is false, if and only if the antecedent P is true and the consequent Q is false. This is the material sense of the implication, where there is no necessary connection between antecedent and consequent. Thus, in summary, unlike as the natural language construction may, the conditional statement if P then Q does not specify a causal relationship between the antecedent and the consequent. Rather, it is to be understood to mean if P is true, then Q is also true. The logic operation of negation closely resembles not in natural language. It is used in propositional logic to construct compound propositions with the opposite truth value of that of the simple proposition on which it operates. Negation is thus a unary, that is, a single argument logical connective, and it is symbolized by a specific not symbol or by the symbol called tilde. Let's illustrate this operation using the example Brutus killed Caesar. Applying our standard knowledge about the world, we can assume that this proposition is true, and that not P, that is, Brutus did not kill Caesar, is then false. And vice versa, if P is false, that is, Brutus did not kill Caesar, then not P, Brutus killed Caesar, can be concluded to be true. Thus, negation is interpreted intuitively as being true when P is false, and false when P is true. Elision is the phonological process in which a phoneme that is present in the citation form of a word is deleted under the influence of the context. In most cases, elision occurs flanking, where the position of an elided phoneme is at the edge of a word or a syllable in its citation form. Flanking elision primarily affects alveolar plosive consonants, as in last time, where the final alveolar plosive of last disappears under the influence of the next word, or in old Ted, where the final d in old is elided. Sometimes elision comes together with assimilation, as in can't be, where due to the elision of the final consonant in can't, the now final alveolar nasal becomes bilabial under the regressive influence of b. Word internal elision affects both vowels and consonants, whereas the elision of vowels is a result of the rhythmic structure of English, as in frightening or history, where unstressed vowels may disappear. Consonantal word internal elision follows the central principle where the middle consonant of three adjacent consonants is dropped, as in windscreen. However, in all these cases of present-day English, elision is mainly optional and typically occurs in rapid conversation. Liaison is most generally defined as the smoothing out of syllable boundaries in speech by adding a phoneme that is not heard in isolation. Let us identify the linking phonemes on the basis of a sentence read very carefully. The aroma of tea greeted you as you entered our office. Using liaison effects, this sentence can alternatively be read as the aroma of tea greeted you as you entered our office. Thus, we can identify three linking phonemes in present-day English. Y, where a final high front vowel precedes another vowel. W, where a high back vowel precedes another vowel. And the insertion of R. In each case, the additional phoneme bridges the gap between two vowels. In present-day English, liaison on a phonemic level is mostly associated with the use of R in this context. There are two variants of this R liaison in present-day English. In cases of linking, an orthographically present and phonemically final post-vocalic R is pronounced when the next word starts with a vowel. So we get cases such as here in London. Since American English is highly rhotic, linking is a standard feature of it anyway. The phenomenon of intrusion or the intrusive R is confined to the non-rhotic varieties of English. Here, the phoneme R is inserted between two vowels even if it is not represented orthographically. The condition is the final vowel of the first item must be a low back or a central vowel, and the next word must start with a vowel. So in RP we get law and order, and so on. Similar to the other connected speech effects such as assimilation and elision, liaison is mainly optional. Allophones of a phoneme that may appear in the same context without causing a change in meaning are called free variants. For example, in English, final plosives as in top, step, or lap may be aspirated as in top, lap, and unaspirated as in top or lap. They occur in the same context, but there is no difference in meaning between top and top. We therefore cannot assign them to different phonemes. They are both allophones of the same phoneme and are referred to as free variants. Or take the realization of the initial sound in words beginning with H, where the vowel U follows, as in human or huge. You can pronounce them using the palatal approximant y, as in human or huge. Or you can take the voiced palatal fricative y, as in human and huge. Both variants even share the same symbol. Some speakers make it even voiceless, like in German Chemie, and say human and huge. So we have three free variants. Phonemically, however, there is no difference and the meaning doesn't change. Another example can be found in British English, where the R between two vowels can be realized in two ways. We normally use the alveolar approximant as in carry or borrow, but in a somewhat posh way of speaking English, we can also use the alveolar flap as in carry or borrow. Thus, as the American linguist William Labov pointed out, three variants may also have sociological significance. Sentences can consist of any number of clauses. If a sentence consists of one clause, we call it a simple sentence, such as "the cat sat on the mat." Thus, the terms clause and sentence can be used synonymously here. If there is more than one clause in a sentence, we refer to the sentence as multiple sentence. The relationship between the clauses in multiple sentences can be manifested in two ways. In compound sentences such as "the cat sat" and "the dog ran," the clauses are coordinated with each other by means of a coordinator. The most familiar coordinators that are used to coordinate clauses are the conjunctions and, but, and or. Complex sentences such as "the cat sat when the dog ran," by contrast, consist of a main clause and one plus any number of subordinate clauses. The connection between the clauses is often signaled by means of subordinating conjunctions such as when, although, because, before, if, and so on. In many cases, especially in written English, multiple sentences often combine coordinate and subordinate structures. In "When Robert finally hung up, Bill went downstairs finding Mary on the couch," we have a multiple declarative sentence. It exhibits two clauses in a compound relationship without an overt coordinator, where clause 2 is an elliptical non-finite clause. The missing element is Bill. Clause 1 is a complex sentence with an adverbial subordinate clause of time, signaled by the initial subordinating conjunction when, and a finite main clause. Thematic relations express the role that is assigned to the arguments of a verb in a sentence. Here are three sentences. For example, run, as in "the boys run," has one argument, the boys, which functions as the subject. See has two arguments, a subject and an object, and give has three, a subject, an indirect, and a direct object. Each verb determines its thematic relations. For example, in all three verbs, the subject, which is normally a noun phrase, must be an agent, that is, someone who deliberately performs the action. In see, we additionally have a theme, an element that undergoes the action but does not change its state, and in give we also have a goal to which the action is directed. Linguists define up to 15 thematic relations. These are language independent, but admittedly often the boundaries are not clear. For example, in "the hammer broke the window," some linguists treat hammer as an agent, some others as an instrument, and again some others as a role different from these. In many synthetic languages, thematic relations may be reflected in case marking. For instance, Hungarian has an instrumental case ending.
László üti Esztert az esernyővel.
And this case ending explicitly marks the instrument of a sentence. More analytic languages, like English by contrast, often mark such thematic relations with prepositions. The term adjunct is used to refer to an optional element in a construction. There are two interpretations of the term, a more traditional one and one that relates to X-bar syntax. According to a more general approach, adjuncts are elements of clause structure that may be removed without the structural identity of the rest of the construction being affected. The clearest example at the sentence level is the adverbial. Here is an example. John saw the woman in the park. Where John saw the woman, that is, the sentence without the adverbial, is grammatical, but John saw in the park is not. So in these examples, the adverbial, realized by a prepositional phrase, is an adjunct to see, whereas the noun phrase, the woman, is a complement. Note that there is no theoretical limit to the number of adjuncts. In other words, adjuncts can be stacked. Brutus stabbed Caesar with a knife in Rome, in 44 before Christ, in the Ides of March, and so on. In these examples, the prepositional phrases are adjuncts to stab, whereas the noun phrase Caesar is a complement. In X-bar syntax, the phrase structure representation format in generative grammar, adjuncts are defined structurally as sisters of X-bar and as daughters of another X-bar. So in Brutus stabbed Caesar with a knife, the prepositional phrase with a knife is an adjunct. It is a sister to verb bar and a daughter to another verb bar. Since adding an adjunct may recursively expand X bar into another X bar, the number of adjuncts is theoretically unlimited.
Recursion describes the repetition of a linguistic element or grammatical structure in sequence. The recursive property of language enables its grammar to produce an infinite number of sentences. In other words, there is no upper limit to the possible sentences that a speaker of a language can create. Recursion can occur in adjectival phrases, prepositional phrases, or sentence coordination. Take, for instance, this quote from Louis Sachar's book, Holes. It was all because of his no-good, dirty, rotten, pig-stealing great-great-grandfather. The string of adjectives modifying the noun grandfather is an example of a recursive structure. According to the rule of generative grammar, an adjectival phrase may consist of an adjective and another adjectival phrase. That adjectival phrase can consist of an adjective and yet another adjectival phrase. The rule can be applied over and over and over to create grammatically boundless possibilities. Prepositional phrases also lend themselves to recursion. Jack can be sitting on the chair, at the table, in the house, by the park, in the town, with the garden, next to the lake, and so on. Similarly, on the level of sentence coordination, I can think that you think, that he thinks, that she thinks, that they think, that we think that linguistics is great.
The subjunctive is a form of a finite verb that is mostly used in hypothetical or non-factual cases, but also in special kinds of finite dependent clauses. In present-day English, there are two types of subjunctive, the present subjunctive and the past subjunctive. The present subjunctive consists of the base form of the verb used where the S form of the verb would normally occur. The present subjunctive can be used in that clauses like, it is important that everyone register, or the teacher insists that her students be on time. It also occurs in adverbial clauses. Here's an example. It will be a fantastic day, whether it be sunny or cloudy. The past subjunctive uses the simple past to show hypothetical conditions, demands, and wishes. Typical cases are seen in expressions like, if I were you, and, James, it's time you got married. Sometimes the subjunctive cannot clearly be recognized. In the examples, it is important that she try to study often, and it is important that you try to study often. It is clear that the subjunctive form of you try remains unchanged, whereas the subjunctive form she try differs from the normal simple present form she tries. Since the past subjunctive of be is were, I was changes to I were, as in if I were your girlfriend. The same is true for he, she, it, whereas the subjunctive of the other personal pronouns are unnoticeable. Here you can only recognize the subjunctive from the context.
A lexeme is defined as the fundamental unit of the lexicon of a language, that is, as an abstract vocabulary item which may be realized in different sets of grammatical variants. By convention, lexemes are represented in capital letters. Here is an example, the lexeme fly. And like all lexemes, fly belongs to a particular syntactic category. It has a certain meaning, and, in synthetic languages, it has a corresponding inflectional paradigm which lists its inflectional realizations. Note that there is a second lexeme fly, which belongs to the categories of verbs and involves in whatever interpretation the meaning of physical transfer from one location to another, and it has its own inflectional paradigm too. So the lexeme is an abstract head term which is associated with syntactic categories and a particular semantic interpretation, and its actual realizations are word forms. The set of the inflectional variants of a lexeme constitutes the so-called paradigm. In many cases, lexemes are realized by more than just inflectional variants, but include word forms associated with word formation processes. For example, the lexeme fly number 2 has such an extended set. Such a set can be referred to as word family. Blends are words formed in an unorthodox way by joining chunks of their component parts. Here is a well-known example. The combination of smoke and fog results in smog. In smog, two monosyllabic words are recombined, and we can clearly see that the result is a combination of the onset of the first syllable and the rhyme of the second one. In brunch, two words with different syllable structures are recombined, and again, the result is a combination of the first onset and the last rhyme. Today, many ordinary words are blends. In fact, some of them, for example spam, are so well installed in the lexicon that speakers are unaware of the fact that they are really hybrid words rather than simple roots. In this case, a blend from spice and ham. Blends should not be mixed up with abbreviated compounds. Whereas blends cannot be spelled out and used in a full version, abbreviated compounds can be used in two ways, in their abbreviated or in their full form.
Suppletion is the replacement of one stem with another, resulting in an allomorph of a morpheme which has no phonological similarity to the other allomorphs. Suppletion occurs when the syntax requires a form of a lexeme that is not morphologically predictable. Standard illustrations of suppletion in English include the forms of the verb be, the degrees of comparison of some adjectives, and the non-derived forms of ordinal numbers. Defining suppletion is more complicated than it may seem. Pertinent issues concern long-debated theoretical notions such as word, morpheme, regularity, productivity, and the dichotomy between derivation and inflection. For a long time, the database on suppletion was restricted to Indo-European languages. However, large-scale cross-linguistic studies have observed the phenomenon in many languages around the globe. Different kinds of suppletion affect different linguistic signs, stem suppletion and affix suppletion. Thus, it is customary to distinguish between affixal and stem suppletion. An English example of affixal suppletion is the plural affix en, as in oxen. It is not motivated by any morphophonological rules of English. Unlike other plural allomorphs such as boys and cups.
Conversion, also known as zero derivation, is a type of word formation in which the category and the function of a word change without any reduction. Bill Watterson coined the phrase verbing Weird's language in his daily comic strip Calvin and Hobbes. This quote demonstrates the conversion of the noun, verb, and the adjective, weird. The most productive conversion process in the English language is noun to verb, or verbification. Some examples are as follows. I can send someone an email, but I can also email someone. I can search Google, or I can Google something. And instead of adding you as a friend, I can friend you. Another productive process in English is verb to noun, or nominalization. If I guess something, this something is a guess. I can spy on someone, and I am therefore a spy. Less common forms are the nominalization of phrasal verbs, the conversion of verbs to adjectives, and even forms where function words are converted to nouns. Conversion is present in other languages, but it is not deemed zero derivation as they involve changes in the word form. In Esperanto, for example, any word can be changed into a verb by altering its ending or adding suffixes. And in Hebrew and other Semitic languages, the internal vowels are changed. And with that, I think you'll all agree that verbing does indeed weird language.
An endocentric compound refers to the combination of two or more roots, words, or phrases in which the grammatical head of the compound expresses its main meaning. Examples include information fatigue, armchair, and banknote. Information fatigue is a type of fatigue, armchair is a type of chair, and banknote is a type of note. Heads can be nouns, resulting in nominal compounds, adjectives, resulting in adjectival compounds, or verbs, resulting in verbal compounds. While the head defines the meaning of an endocentric compound, the modifier narrows that meaning, making the compound a hyponym of the head. In English, endocentric compounds are typically right-headed. However, there are also left-headed endocentric compounds, as for example, mother-in-law or commander-in-chief.
A vast number of morphological changes in language can be attributed to a linguistic process known as analogy. In analogical restructuring, irregular patterns are invented to conform with regular patterns that already exist in the language. For example, in Old English, the following three forms have undergone analogical restructuring so that today we only have two forms. Instances of analogical restructuring can also be found in the present-day English system of relative pronouns. Here we have two paradigms. In two of them, we have identity between the object and the subject form. However, in the personal paradigm there's a difference. Due to an analogical change, the form whom becomes who. Closely related to the process of analogy is the mechanism of reinterpretation. Reinterpretation primarily applies to changes in syntax. Note that analogy does not create new patterns, rather, it modifies the already existing patterns in a language.